Coming to you live from the heart of the free state of New Hampshire. This is The Independence with Carla Garrick. And now, here's your host, Carla Garrick.
Hi guys, and welcome back to The Independence. I am laughing at my producer Brendan back there, who was laughing at my shimmying. I can't help it. So welcome to the new year. I hope everyone had a fantastic holiday season. I certainly did. Went up to Canada, Montreal for 2 days, Quebec City for 2 days. I'd never been in Quebec City before. That was sort of a great experience. And so we're kicking off the new year. I'm curious to hear what kind of New Year's resolutions you might have made. But just to situate us all in today's episode, here's what I'm going to be covering. One, we're going to talk a little bit about the successes that MAHA and Robert Kennedy Jr. have introduced. I'm not going to fully touch on the disasters that are coming out of the Trump administration, but we could have picked two horses there. I was the one who said, send them to the Libertarian Convention and flip a coin on the order of who's president and who's vice president. But now we see Trump has been caught up or co-opted or something. So, there are rumblings of war in Venezuela. To me, that looks very strongly like a play for oil. A lot of influencers on the internet want you to believe it's something else. The neocons have bubbled up again. They are actually infiltrating libertarianism. So reminder, if you're anti-war, you're anti-war. You're not anti-war unless it's your guy bombing other people, okay? We will also be talking about what's coming up next week. I'm going to give you a quick recap on last night's AFP event over in Sandown for New Hampshire's 250th birthday, which was yesterday. Did you know New Hampshire was the first of the colonies to introduce or sign a New Hampshire Constitution? Yeah, before the Declaration of Independence. This is also why we as a state have the right to secede, because we incorporated before America. And psst, that's the one they don't want you to know about. I will also tell you about some upcoming independence bills and my New Year's resolutions, what's up with the gold standard, what's coming up with EdUp, and whatever else we find time for. First, I want to tell just a cute little story about cannabis and Canada. So I was at this function last night with AFP out in the vineyard in Sandown. Really nice location. I'm going to butcher the name, so I'm not, but there is a vineyard. I'd never been there before. It was kind of a fun drive. You go through Auburn, and it was very Republican, although it was a nonpartisan event. In fact, I spoke to a new candidate running out of Bedford, Melissa, and she asked me, "Oh, what's your show's name?" And I said, "The Independence." And she looked like there was a visceral little reaction, and I thought, oh, wow, that's interesting. I'll have to think about that a little bit. But be that as it may, so I'm talking to some friends at the dinner table, and there's some Republicans sitting over there that I know from seeing them around. We've probably met a few times, but I wouldn't be able to give their name. And I was like, hey, I have this great pot story. And I see him leaning in because he's now very curious. And so what I found fascinating going to Canada was that we drove through Vermont, where cannabis is legal. We went into Quebec province, in an international country where cannabis is legal. Leaving the United States, there was a sign that said, if you're carrying cannabis, you must declare it. Now, as a staunch libertarian, I know whenever someone says you must declare it, it just means they want to tax you. Now, I had decided I wasn't going to drive over the border with anything on me because I wasn't quite sure what the situation was. All right, fast forward. Now we're in Montreal. We're on holiday. Oh my goodness. In case people don't know, exchange rate really, really good going to Canada right now. I ate at least 4 Michelin star restaurants, mostly for lunch. I had one brunch that was 9 courses, including like caribou sausage, homemade ketchup. It's really nice little cheesy things, and I haven't eaten yet today, so I'm probably gonna start salivating. But, and that meal, 9-course brunch, you know, at like 2 in the afternoon kind of thing with cafe au laits and everything, was like $30 US. So I think I'm gonna be doing more Canada runs coming up. All right, so be that as it may, I'm in Montreal and I'm like, hey, I think I wanna go get just some vape juice. And cannabis is legal. It is state-run in Quebec province. They have pot stores where you have to go, you have to show your ID, you go in. They, at the one at least I was at, did not sell flour, which is my preference. I'm sort of like a hippie that way. I've tried to get rid of all the other forms, you know, with the edibles, that's a lot of sugar I don't need. With the vaping, it becomes very chronic because I'm an ex-smoker. Fine. So I get a vape, but it's like $100 for the machine and the 2 cartridges, right? So, you know, at least money. So on the way back, I was like, I'm not gonna throw it away and I'm just gonna kind of see. And if they catch me, I'm just gonna be like, oops, I forgot. And hopefully they just throw it away, you know, fine. So I'm driving back, and I'm actually driving as we go through the passport control, and there's a sign up. So this is from Quebec back into Vermont. And the sign says, do you have any live animals, vegetables, cheese, like, you know, plants, right? Like there's a list that we're all familiar with. And nowhere on that list, actually it didn't say plants, I don't think, but nowhere on that list is anything about cannabis. So I'm like, cool. So I roll up to the window, and the passport guy says, oh, you know, do you have any live animals? Did you bring back any nuts? I forget, or whatever it was. And he goes, do you have any of this in the car? And I look him dead in the eye and I go, no, all we have is baked goods. And I thought it was hilarious. My husband laughed pretty loud. The guy kind of gave me that look of, I know what you're saying, but I'm gonna let it go. The Republican at the AFP thing laughed pretty hard too. So what is my point? My point is actually that we have put millions of people in prison over the years for a plant that no one cares about now. And the point that I'm trying to make is that perhaps we should, one, not be giving this much power to government to control consumption of what you want to put in your body. But second of all, it shows the ridiculousness of regulations, of binary thinking, of one moment saying this thing's good, one moment saying it's bad. And it underscores actually my sentiment that if y'all want cannabis to be prohibited, then I'm gonna start telling everyone alcohol needs to be prohibited. So maybe we should just all go, hey, we should be a little more hands off. All right, so New Hampshire was the first state to write its own constitution. That was back in 1776. 1776 is going to be a big thing this year because it, of course, is also the 250th birthday of the United States. There are some independence bills coming up, and I gotta tell you, if you don't know this, the legislature hits the ground running. There are over 1,400 bills. They are in session today. One of my bills, 1441, which is the study committee for an independent and free separation, peaceful separation from the U.S. government in the event, that our, national debt keeps going up and up and up. But just the study committee to kind of take a look and be like, hey, feasibly, how would this work? Is being introduced today. Now, according to the people I asked last night, and I'm hoping no one gave me the wrong skinny on this, that just means that it's being introduced, not that there's testimony. So if there's testimony today, I'm not there. So hopefully that is not what was happening. But the study committee is supposed to really be able to start to assuage people's fears about this path that I think we should be on. At a minimum, it moves the Overton window, thereby creating an appetite for people to nullify more things. And worst case scenario, it means we've created a pretty good roadmap in the event of an American bankruptcy. Now, one of the ways that they distract people from economic issues like growing inflation, like the dollar losing value, Bitcoin is looking a little sketch right now, gold and silver, the solids are actually going up. The way sometimes they distract you from the economy is by either pitting you against a group, which is the whole immigration debate, or by actually going to war, right? So I caution again everyone to mindfully remember that war is not the answer. In fact, war is a racket. It is the welfare warfare state, and those two things feed each other. And if you are new to these ideas, go read Smedley Butler's War is a Racket. I wanted to let everyone know I completed my living experiment last year. What was that, you ask? Well, for 365 days straight, I went on X Live to sort of, 1, practice my voice, 2, hone some of these skills, 3, see if I could actually do it, and 4, publicly show people that I have the temperament and competence to start to build out a larger broadcast effort here in New Hampshire. So I am starting a new schedule for this show for the Independents. It will be recorded on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Monday nights, we're doing it at the podcast studio in Manchester at the Quill, which is a membership-based libertarian clubhouse that has been around for about 15 years. If you would like to use that podcast studio, talk to me about becoming a Quill member. On Fridays, we'll probably have guests. And then, of course, this Wednesday show, which I've been doing online for several years now, and that goes out also on Manchester Public Access Television. So why am I mentioning the MLXs? Because it ties in very strongly to New Year's resolutions, to neuroscience, to how we as humans optimize to be better, how we can hack our hormones, our health, our neurotransmitters, to really up and optimize our efforts in things. So I'm working on a book about the experience. It will be called My Living Experiment, 365 Days of Living Out Loud in the Freest Place on Earth. It'll be partly like sort of a guidebook, but also memoir and sort of like, hey, this is what I learned. So hopefully hold my feet to the fire because I do need to get that book completed and out as soon as possible. I have put a 3-month first draft at the end of March, and I'm really gonna try hard to do that and to not let these creative efforts slip out of my hands because I get busy with other things. Why am I mentioning that? Because I think that's something we all struggle with. And being mindful or intentional about that can really help you focus your attention where it should be. So I'm curious, and if you're watching this online, maybe drop some comments, whether you made a New Year's resolution. So last year, mine was only to do those MLXs. Committing to one thing every day, that's hard, right? Committing to one thing every day publicly is harder. Committing to it and having turns out, erase half of them. Yeah, I didn't need to find that out yesterday, but there we are. So for this year, I thought, I'd been saying, oh, it should be the year of the body. Now that sounds a little dramatic at my age, but I was like, okay, I would like to be fitter and stronger. And I'm sure many of you at home have made those sort of resolutions for yourself, but I don't want it to be generic, because generic resolutions tend not to work. So the more specific you are in your goal setting, the more likely you are to succeed. So by way of example, last year saying, I'm going to do this one hard thing every day publicly that can be vetted. The story is the streak. The streak is the story, by the way. So for this year, I was like, all right, if I want to be fitter and stronger, but I also don't want to expend too much energy on that while I'm doing all these hundreds of other things. So I was like, okay, I'm going to hang from a crossbar and time it and see if I can up that. And for whatever amount of time I hang, I'm going to bounce a 10-pound ball from over my head down, right? So I only started on Monday, so that's the 6th of January. And I could only hang for 30 seconds, which I counted in my head, which means it was probably like 17, 18 seconds, because it's hard and I was counting really fast. And then the next day, I was like, okay, if you're gonna do this like an MLX, meaning my living experiment, meaning doing it on a daily basis, doing something you want to accomplish so that you can rewire your brain so that you can release things like dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and the good feel-good molecules, the feel-good mood stabilizers, all the actual hormones and neurotransmitters you want to release so that you feel like you're accomplishing things and that you're actually putting your body in a good, balanced state, instead of chasing things like adrenaline and ghrelin, that's the hunger one, or like whatever the bad ones are that I choose not even to focus on. So daily habits, right? How you spend your time is your habits, and that is your life. Okay, so hopefully we'll see how this goes. I mean, I feel like I trained those wirings. So if you've made some New Year's resolutions, go do it. You can, and I'd love to hear how you do with that. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes here, because it's start of the year. I've been rambling on about all my crap. So let me tell you guys a few things that are coming up so that we don't miss those towards the end. The gold standard came out today. What is that? That is the efforts of the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance. This is the first one of the season. You can always go online to nhlibertyalliance.org, possibly .com as well. Let me look. Yeah, .com. And find that gold standard. It is handed out every Wednesday up at the State House. It basically takes all the bills that are being heard that day, and it's like, yay, nay, right? So there are a bunch of bills coming up, including a bill that legalizes cannabis and regulates it similar to alcohol. This is on a yay ought to pass. That would make me very happy. President Trump just signed an executive order to decriminalize cannabis. So if Trump's on board, maybe we can get the Republicans on board and finally get this actually through. There are several other bills that I'm not going to get into all the details, but There is also, let's see, I think the big one is HB 603. So this has to do with firearms, stun guns, tasers, pepper spray, knives, tools, probably some brass knuckles if we're going to get into the whole thing here, where basically what they say, any self-defense tools cannot be more specifically regulated on a local level than on a state level, meaning constitutional protection for self-defense is really what it is. And again, here's the big secret. It's probably not going to impact your life one way or the other. If you're not into those weapons, you shouldn't even care. And if you're into it, you're probably doing it already. So let's just formalize the reality that is going on. All right, so Americans for Prosperity, as I mentioned, had that event last night. Kudos to everyone who put that together. It was a lot of fun, great turnout, probably over 200 people, good excitement, all of that. On January 13th, there will be a key policy event and discussion about universal license reciprocity. This is one of those ones that isn't really sexy, but it really does make a difference for people who want to move to New Hampshire. So if you're a plumber or an electrician or a nurse or a teacher or a lawyer or anything, every state has like a little bit of a different flavor, and it's like barriers to entry for people to work. We have a shortage in New Hampshire. Anyone who's tried to get a plumber or electrician or even a home painter for any reason knows that there are issues. So I think the thinking is, can we make reciprocity more of a thing? And perhaps that should just be a general note for society at large, which is basically, you know, let's be equally nice to each other. So that is on January 13th. It will aim at reducing occupational licensing hurdles to boost workforce mobility and economic growth. And then for the Free State Project, things that are coming up, we will have Porcupine Day on February 3rd, 2026, 2326. That will be at Bedford's and Murphy's. Murphy's in Bedford. And I'm still figuring everything out, but tickets will be on sale by the end of the week. I'm cautiously optimistic, maybe we could get Snowden back. I'm putting that out in the universe. I am working all my angles. Of course, Edward Snowden, who was the whistleblower back in 2016, who got stuck in Russia. He was the person who exposed the illegal surveillance taking place by the federal government. They pretended to reform all of that, didn't do it. Face it, we're in a surveillance state, and if your privacy is important to you, you have to protect it. So Pork Day will be taking place 2/3/26. Tickets on sale on Friday or over the weekend at the latest. It, of course, is a fundraiser for the Free State Project. There is also, in March, Liberty Forum coming up. So that will be at the Grapponi Center in Concord. And I encourage everyone to go get their tickets for that. The sooner you buy them, the easier our planning is. If you're watching this and you want to sponsor some of our events, please reach out to me or to Eric Brakey, the executive director of the Free State Project. All right, with the last 5 minutes we have, I want to talk a little bit about the successes that have come from the MAHA camp, by which we are seeing a significant and important and possibly life-changing changes happening at the HHS under the auspices of RFK. They are reducing the number of doses and, well, so I was going to say doses, but that's not correct. So diseases that they are forcing people to get inoculated with. So quick condensement, if you want to send your kid to public school, or basically if you want to go to college, like I was forced into a MMR vaccine back in 2008 that significantly negatively impacted my health and took me like 15 years to fix. But there are all these doses, right? And MMR has 3 diseases and whatever. So what they have done is they have reduced the number of diseases for which you get forced injections from 17 to 11. I'm talking off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure those are the numbers. So core vaccines retained. Recommendations remain in place for vaccines protecting against 11 critical diseases: measles, mumps, rubella, polio, pertussis, tetanus, diphtheria, hepatitis B. I thought they had taken those off. All right, so vaccines will now no longer be universally recommended. 6 of the vaccines have been shifted from routine recommendations for all children to optional. This is a big deal. The change stems from a presidential memorandum directing a review of the vaccine schedule and emphasizing alignment with international consensus. So basically what they've done is they've actually made the US schedule look a lot more like Denmark's. Now, if the whole idea of this is getting your hackles up, you might want to ask yourself why. And the core answer will actually be that you, like me, and like everyone else, was propagandized into this belief about vaccines that now that we can analyze openly and transparently the data in support of vaccines, vaccine safety, and why possibly on God's green earth they should have immunity from liability for these products that they are putting into newborns. The truth is coming out that there is not science to substantiate these products being on the market. And I think probably in my lifetime, we are going to see a bankruptcy of these pharmaceutical companies that have basically been benefiting from bad collusion, corporatism, cronyism between the federal government and big corporations. And frankly, I'm here for it. With the last few seconds I have here, I just want to say I created a list, and by I of course mean the AI, of promises kept by RFK and stacked up against Trump. RFK is looking pretty good. So, let's keep our eye on this war stuff. If you're into education stuff, there are 3 EdUp events coming up in the next month or so in Claremont on Monday, January 26th from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Claremont Savings Bank, in Dummer on Wednesday, January 28th from 6 to 8 p.m., and in Dover on Thursday, January 29th from 6 to 8 p.m. What is this? This is where you go if you're like, what is going on in the education landscape? EdUp has the answer for you. That is education options, fairs, and I highly recommend if you are a parent, that is a good place for you to go explore whether your child needs to stay in the failing public schools or if there are better options for you for their future. All right, that is pretty much all I have time for today. I wish everyone peace, love, and understanding, and I'll see you all back here again next time.